Welcome to our Austin Governors Forum, powered by our friends at google.org, organized by my organization, the Justice Action Network, and co-sponsored by the Texas Public Policy Foundation and our valued partners at Right on Crime. My name is Holly Harris, and I'm the Executive Director of the Justice Action Network. We're the largest bipartisan organization working to reform our broken justice system at both the state and the federal level. We work with conservative and progressive organizations all across the country on policies that safely reduce the prison population, that shrink and streamline and update criminal codes, and break down barriers for the formerly incarcerated so they can find jobs, support their families, and ultimately turn away from crime for good. It is no coincidence that we are in Austin for this event this week. The Republican Governors Association is in town, and we want to make sure that criminal justice reform is a part of that conversation and that we're amplifying the incredible work that's been done by conservative leaders all over the country, including Governor Nathan Deal of Georgia, Governor Mary Fallin in Oklahoma, Governor Ducey in Arizona, and of course, our two esteemed panelists here today, Governor Reynolds of Iowa and Governor Bevin from my home state of Kentucky. Today's event is being live streamed on the Daily Caller's website, and we just confirmed that the live stream is being broadcast throughout the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women in Mitchellville, Iowa. The live stream is right up there. If everyone could please turn around and wave at the women of the Mitchellville prison. I'd like to personally thank all of you women for allowing us to film you and follow your stories. You inspired us with your tenacity and your perseverance by improving your education and learning a trade. The Iowa Apprenticeship Program is one of the most well-oiled machines that you will ever see. And Governor Bevin, it's just like Toyota. It's amazing. These women are some of the most qualified and well-skilled workers that any employer could ever have. And any business and any company would be very lucky to have them. So thank you women so much, and thank you for tuning into our live stream. I'd like to recognize Ashley Hanna, our esteemed and accomplished board chair, for pushing us not to settle for just getting a committee hearing, but actually changing laws and changing lives. Ashley represents Houston's own Laura and John Arnold, two of this country's most thoughtful and generous philanthropists. Without their incredible generosity, this work would not be possible. And we're grateful to the everyday inspiration that is Google's Malika Sada Sar. Her passion for issues facing incarcerated women, drove our last project together, the Women Unshackled event. And I'm not sure I've told you this, Malika, but we'll soon be partnering with the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition on some cutting-edge policy work in that space. And Kentucky's own Smart on Crime Coalition is hosting a media conference on Monday on issues facing incarcerated women. So thank you, Malika, and thank you to Google for continuing to collaborate with us on these important projects that truly do start conversation, drive work, and ultimately change lives. Once again, thanks to Kurt Gallatin and your colleague, Mallory Mullen, and the crew from Harbinger Outreach for another beautiful event. Their team worked throughout the night to build out this beautiful experience for us. Thanks to Nick Everhart and Dan Byans with Creative Content Media, who produced the films that you're going to see today. Guys, the videos are beautiful. Thank you so much. And by the way, Governor Reynolds has yet to see her film, and we told her she's gonna cry, so. I wanna thank the governor's staffs for their patience, especially the chiefs, Blake and Jake. Sounds like a reality show, doesn't it? They allow us to push the envelope, and they have yet to tell us no, knock on wood. Finally, I'd like to thank our team at the Justice Action Network, who just will things to happen every day. Jenna Mull, Andrew Howard, Sarita Bowen, Spencer Kay, Cortland Broyles, and Carrie Glenn. I feel very lucky, very privileged, very fortunate to work with all of you. So now it's my honor to introduce our first speaker, my friend, Doug Deason. Doug is the president of the Deason Foundation and is now a member of the board at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He is a powerful and passionate advocate for criminal justice reform, and maybe the best way to explain Doug's impact on this work is to share my personal story of our very first meeting. I was in Washington, D.C., AKA the Swamp, and Doug and I met up for coffee, and I was just anxiety-ridden. And he asked me what was wrong, and I told him I was incredibly nervous because Senate Bill 120 in Kentucky, the criminal justice reform legislation, was going to be before the House Judiciary Committee for a vote. And I told him, you know, I think it would make all the difference if we could get Governor Bevin to call all of the committee members tonight. Well, Doug whips out his mobile. He said, "Oh, I know, Matt. We're very close friends." Immediately starts texting Governor Bevin. "Hey, Matt, it's Doug here. Holly Harris needs you to call every member of the House Judiciary Committee. She thinks that's going to make all the difference in passing the bill." And what do you know? Every member of the committee that night had outreach from Governor Bevin, and the next day, Senate Bill 120 sailed through committee and ultimately made it to the governor's desk for his signature. So, without further ado, my dear friend, Doug Deason.
Thank you. And obviously, I'll need your phone number, Governor Reynolds, your cell phone. It's a little trick we use. We always have the governor prepared to call, and then Governor Perry has been a great ally over the last few years. You know, even after he was out of office, he was wherever he was. I could call him and he would make the phone call. So it's been great. I'm going to have to get my glasses out and read here a little bit, but the Governor Abbott can't be here today. Obviously, he has 15 other events to attend at the same exact time, so he wanted me to come and be here, and Holly had asked me to be here as well. But he's so glad that this is happening because criminal justice reform is very, very important to Governor Abbott. He's been a strong ally. He has a new chief of staff who we were in D.C. together Monday, and the first thing he said to me was that, you know, gave me his cell phone, and he said, "I'm here for you." So Texas has been the leader for some time, and it's going to continue. We're going to continue to push it and help the other states in any way that we can. So I want to welcome everyone on behalf of Texas Public Policy Foundation and all my fellow Texans to Austin. I'm personally very passionate about this issue. The Texas story, people in Texas are passionate about it. Over a decade ago, the Texas justice system was in crisis. I think it was 2005. Our prison population was exploding. We didn't have the space for all the prisoners entering our justice system. So we had two choices: either build new prisons or safely reduce the growth of the prison population. During the 2007 legislative session, Texas passed the first significant round of criminal justice reforms and enabled us to close 3 prisons and avoid spending an additional $3 billion. Most importantly, though, and what had the most profound impact for us, and I think for a lot of the country, is it lowered crime and recidivism rates at the same time. And it's been an incredible result that, frankly, that we didn't know if it would work or not. It was an experiment, and it worked. Governor Perry and Jerry Madden and some of our legislators had the foresight and the courage to do that, and I'm very proud of all of them for doing that. My personal story is I was raised in northwest Arkansas near Walmart. So I entered my first Walmart when I was a young kid and have just shopped there exclusively ever since. I get asked all the time, why am I so passionate about it and about second chances in criminal justice reform? And I was given a second chance. I was actually given that second chance by Governor, or at the time, City Attorney Asa Hutchinson in Bentonville, Arkansas. It was a little town, and so the city attorney did everything in the town. And of course now he's the governor of Arkansas, and he's here in attendance, not in this group, but he and I have talked about this many times. He says he remembers it. I don't think he does, but I wouldn't expect him to. But believe me, I certainly do. I was charged. We had a little party in a buddy's house. He'd left. His parents had been transferred away from Walmart, and the son left me a key. So we would go in, mix a drink, have fun. That was the whole point, but we weren't supposed to have a party. And of course, it turned into the party. And I got charged with burglary. And my mom called Asa, and he said, "Don't worry about it, Bonnie, we'll get it worked out." So we were not wealthy, but we were well connected because we'd been there since 1840, so we knew everybody. And most people don't have that ability or that chance, and it's just it's always affected me everywhere I've gone, and whenever I've signed an application or anything else, I've never had to check that box, and I've always been so blessed and so cognizant of that, and it's something that I've worked hard to try to give back because of. Obviously, my actions were wrong, and I knew it, but I didn't realize what a felony, how that could affect me for the rest of my life, and City Attorney Hutchinson explained it to me in great detail, and I was very, very thankful and appreciative to him. So anyhow, my record was expunged. They didn't even have expungement in Arkansas at the time, so I really worked out great. So that's why I'm passionate about it. That's why I travel the country at times and speak on it whenever I have a chance and work on different projects at the state and federal level. But let me move on to introduce the panel. I'm just thrilled to be able to do this and be here to do this. We'll start with the moderator of today's event is Google's Malika Sadasar. Malika has long been on the front lines of human rights work, fighting human trafficking and the prostitution of young girls. She is now a nationally renowned voice on criminal justice reform policy. Governor Reynolds was sworn into office as the first female governor of Iowa in May of this year. One of her first acts as governor, as has already been mentioned, was to visit the women's prison in Mitchellville, Iowa, where she was the first governor in the state's history to offer a keynote address at a high school equivalency graduation ceremony within the prison walls. And then my good friend Matt Bevin. Matt and I have met on several different occasions at Coke seminars and various other events. He has delivered on it's just amazing what he's done. Amazing. I mean, I don't even see how he did it, actually. On every single one of his campaign promises he's delivered. And he's less than 2 years into his first term. His first year in office, he promised to transform Kentucky's justice system. And now he's passed a felony expungement bill and a strong reentry package. Further, his administration has banned the box for public employees and employment and launched the Justice to Journeyman initiative that matches incarcerated individuals with skilled jobs. He's now a national voice for reform in demand all over the country, even in Austin, and was recently one of 2 governors invited to share his home state's success stories at the White House. And if Texas is the birthplace of reform, then my good friend Mark Levin is the godfather. Mark was recently named Vice President of Criminal Justice Policy for Texas Public Policy Foundation and the Right on Crime Initiative, which has been his home for more than a decade. He's encyclopedic in his knowledge of state reforms and has been a part of transformational changes in states from Maryland to Louisiana to Alaska. I could sit here and talk for hours on him and just tell stories because he's quite the character. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Austin Governors panel on justice reform.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here at Google. Welcome to Google. And it's such an honor to share the stage with you. And I want to begin with you, Governor, because it's a special honor to be able to talk to you and to have you here. You are a new governor, and one of the first things you did as a new governor was to say, I'm going to the women's prison in my state. I'm going to visit it, and I'm going to give a keynote speech to those who are graduating with their high school degree at the women's prison. I want to know, what was that like for you, and what do you feel you accomplished?
Well, thank you, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to be here. I want to thank Google, Right on Crime, Justice Action Network, and of course, Texas Public Policy for the opportunity to really highlight the great work that you're doing and to continue to find ways to be a partner in those efforts. You know, since I've been the lieutenant governor and now the governor, our administration really has prioritized effective criminal justice reforms, really to ensure that Iowa's correctional system not only maximizes public safety, but really, truly is doing everything that we can to rehabilitate more people and help make sure that they're prepared when they have the opportunity to move back into society, and help cut costs in the same step. And the first part of doing that is really, doing everything that we can to remove the stigma of incarceration. So I could not have been more honored to have the opportunity to speak at the Women's Correctional Facility in Mitchellville. And ladies, you did me proud, let me tell you. It was an inspiration, it was an honor not only to see them graduate and to receive their high school equivalency, but to showcase a really great apprenticeship program that I'll talk a little bit about later, and the great work that they're doing. So the high school equivalency program, it's really a contract between the department, DMAC, which is a community college, and the Department of Education, and they provide instructors to help work with the women, to help them with not only high school equivalency, but literacy and just life skills, everything we can do to help prepare them for success. And I could not have been more proud to stand among those ladies. And, they've made mistakes, some of them terrible mistakes. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of them are, they struggle with addiction, they have mental illness, and many of them have had serious trauma themselves, whether that's sexual or physical abuse. So a lot of things going on with the women that are incarcerated. But I want to tell you, as I watched those women in their cap and gown walk down that aisle to be recognized that day, I saw hope, I saw pride, excitement in their accomplishments. And you think about the difficulties that many of them have faced, and in their lives, and what they were still facing, and to really see them take the steps that they were taking to prepare themselves for a better future afterwards was just amazing. And we want to continue to help them find value in themselves and what they're doing, and continue to be a part of that. So it was an amazing day, and I was so proud to have the opportunity to showcase what they were doing.
So we get to have a glimpse into what you were doing, because the Justice Action Network was able to capture video from that day. And I would love to be able to share that video the day that you were there.
Each of you have accomplished something so significant. You set a goal, you worked hard, you meant the goal, and now you're ready to begin the next chapter. You've shown what's possible when you focus on a personal growth in a prison environment. Your story is so important to share with others who need to understand that even through difficult times and bad decisions, there's great opportunities in those challenges, especially in education and for personal development and rehabilitation.
When I went to the DMV, actually, I found out that my mom isn't my mom. On your birth certificate, I had never seen my birth certificate. My dad handed the birth certificate to the lady behind the counter, and she asked me what my mom's name was, and I answered incorrectly. I couldn't tell her what my mom's name was. I said Christine Harless, and she was like, I'm sorry, that's not right. And my dad was like, she doesn't know. My birth mom was going to abort me, but my mom, who I call my mom, can't have kids anymore. She really wanted me, and my dad had never had a kid of his own. So they wanted me, they named me. It's really heartbreaking. I have an 8-year-old, dropped out of school when I had her. Things just got a little rough around the family situation. I got tied up with the wrong people, obviously wound up here. Well, it was stolen vehicles, and it was like the adrenaline rush, high-speed chases, and honestly just happy that I got all that out of my system. There's a book here it's from Rick Warren. It's called The Purpose-Driven Life. That book definitely changed me a lot. The first few chapters are really emotional. It talks about that you are not an accident. What motivated me to finish my education is my family. To the people that had given up on me, they were wrong. I'm more than that, and I'm better. Doesn't matter where you came from. You can be whoever you want to be.
Earlier this year, when I was sworn in as the 43rd governor of the great state of Iowa and the first woman governor of the great state of Iowa, I said in my remarks that I'm not perfect and I'm not infallible. In fact, I've really faced some pretty significant hurdles in my life. I'm a recovering alcoholic and thankful for every single day of sobriety that I have. And even with significant challenges like that and some pretty devastating things that helped me realize that I had a problem and I needed help, I was able, with a strong faith and a family and a determination to turn my life around, was able to do it. So you really can face some significant obstacles and challenges and turn your life around and have wonderful, wonderful things happen. We, a couple years ago, put together a governor's work group to just really look at the disparities in the criminal justice system. We got to visit where a lot of the women are participating in an apprenticeship program. I'm such a huge proponent of that. And I was just telling them, you know, life got in my way along my path. And I just graduated in December at Iowa State University with my bachelor's degree at the age of 57. So it's never too late if you have a passion to do it and you're determined. You can get it done, and it may not happen tomorrow or in the next year, but if it's important to you and it's something you want to do, then just keep after it. But when we talked to the women that were participating in the apprenticeship program, you could just tell how good they felt about learning something, learning a skill. There's such a huge need for workforce in this state and really across this country today. And so if we can have business and industry and our correctional facilities really think about how we can help them get a skill, and then we need businesses really being willing and able to hire them and give them a second chance. Employers need workers, and the more that we can connect business and industry and our offenders and our correctional institutions and our policymakers and collaboratively look for ways that we can help them get successful and help them re-enter into our communities, into our state, into their families, everybody wins.
So I think I speak for everyone in this room that we have so much admiration for your courage and your insistence in giving voice to your own journey and using that voice and that lived experience to give connection and hope to so many of us, so many of the women behind bars, but all who are struggling to be able to find their way to regain hope. So thank you. Thank you for that courage, and thank you for being able to inspire us in that way. And I wonder how you take that grace and that strength that is your story, and how you use that strength and grace of your story to connect to other women, and especially the other women who are struggling with the same adversities that you had faced.
Well, I'm going to try to talk. Sorry. As I said earlier, I honestly left more inspired than, they are more inspiring to me. And I think that's the response that you get when you have a chance to sit down with people that have faced adversity, that have made bad decisions, and they want to be better. They want to turn their life around. They want to find hope and a reason to have a better life. And it was so funny. I had prepared remarks, and so when I started to kind of give the address, I thought to myself in the middle of that, I bet they're all looking at this governor of Iowa and thinking, how could this woman have any idea what I'm going through? And, just something at that point just hit me, and I thought it was so important for me to say, I received a second chance too. I had a family and a community and a strong faith that helped get me through some really difficult times in my life. And if I could do it, they could do it. And, it starts with helping them find confidence and self-value and hope. And we're doing that in the institutions. And I saw that. You could see that. Could you see their smiles and the pride and how happy they were to put on that gown and that cap and to walk down that aisle? I'm telling you, their head was high. They believed in themselves, and their families that they had, or their friends, were there in the audience, the smiles on their face and the pride. And it just, the other piece of that, I thought, by me sharing my story, I hoped that inspired in them how important it was for them to inspire other women that were struggling and that were trying to find that same path forward. And when they learn a skill through the apprenticeship program, it is the best thing possible. They're doing lean exercises. They know OSHA. They are certified. We're doing everything we can to bring business and industry and match them up with the institution, so when they walk out of there, they have a license, they have a job, and they have such a great opportunity to take care of themselves and their family. And statistics show when you're doing that, their chances of coming back in really diminish. So I don't know. It was a God thing. It wasn't in my remarks. I hadn't planned on going in that direction, but it was the right thing to do, and I hope it encourages them to do the same thing.
Well, I want to give you a very special thank you. I'm a human rights lawyer. I did not become a human rights lawyer to work for Google. Before I came to Google, I spent years working with women behind bars and going to the prisons and seeing that nobody was visiting the women. And the few times when they could see their children, I watched the heartache of them not being able to hold the hands of their children, not being able to be with their children the way they wanted to. And there was so much shame. So I really want to thank you for, as a first step as governor, going to a women's prison and also being able to speak to that shame from such a powerful place in you. So truly, I just needed to be able to share that gratitude with you.
As I gave them hugs, I mean, they would just say they were just in shock, kind of, a little bit, but they'd say, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it was good to hear, so thank you.
That's right.
And Warden Dom and Director Bartriff, thank you so much for really all that you do for the women in Mitchellville to really help prepare them to have a better life once they get to go back into the community. Thank you.
Governor Bevin, you also are not brand new, but you are a new governor. You came into office over a year and a half ago, and you were very unapologetic and steadfast and clear in saying that justice reform would be a priority for you. And in this time, in this very short period of time, you have been able to advance a very remarkable set of accomplishments around reform. And I would love for you to be able to talk about that work and how you've been able to do it.
Sure. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I mean, it's hard for me to talk to be honest with you, so it's not just you. You can see why I have so much respect for this woman. Just the people of Iowa are very fortunate. And they really are.
Thank you.
For me, it is, America is a land of second chances. It really is. I say this often when I'm asked this question, but it is. The very nature of this country was people coming here for a second chance, people coming here for opportunity. And to me, I do think that it's important to afford people that opportunity. And it's interesting because we are a nation that, while people would beg to differ as to whether we're a Christian nation or not, there's certainly many people, certain Christian, Judeo-Christian principles upon which this nation was built, and many people who would still espouse Christianity. But it's interesting, and your comment of a moment ago struck me, is that, you know, people think about the teachings of Christ, and he encouraged people to reach out to those that others did not, and widows, orphans, and people in prison. And it's easy to reach out to the widows and orphans. It's a lot harder and less seemingly politically acceptable, or whatever the case might be, socially acceptable, to remember people in prison. But I think the one thing more than anything else is that the young woman in that video who was talking about a book that she'd read and being inspired at the value of her life, you know, dignity is a powerful thing.
Yes.
And when you go into these prisons and you talk to people, every one of those women in that video was somebody's little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of circumstances that happen in life, and a lot of things that can take a person in anticipated directions or unanticipated directions. And to me, we're still human beings. We still have a craving to be respected and loved and acknowledged. The power of human touch and of dignity associated with somebody caring, in being a presence. You can't put a value on that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just grateful that from the time I was a kid, the books that I liked to read and the things that moved me were things like this. People that were in prison, people that were orphaned, people who didn't have somebody for them. And I don't know why I was that way, but I just always was. And so I'm just grateful to be in a position where, as a governor, you can use the opportunity that's been afforded you by the voters to bring attention to something, and with a sense of urgency. And your words are kind with respect to what we've gotten done, but this is the first political job I've ever had. I didn't aspire to this. I didn't ever imagine I'd be in this position. But I do believe in moving with a very specific sense of purpose, into being unapologetic, into doing things boldly, not in the aren't I courageous front, but in the don't worry about the political ramifications or consequences. And there's frankly nothing to be gained from going into a prison. No, you don't. That's not going to be part of your next political ad. You know, nobody. These are things that are kind of, you don't talk about in polite company. But that's what needs to change. And I'm grateful to have fellow governors who, like myself, recognize that we have 2 million men and women who are incarcerated in America, and 95% of them or more are going to get out. And we've done such a good job of removing people, but we need to do a better job of rehabilitating them through these very programs we've been discussing, but also of just, you know, reassimilating people in valuing them, because they are a part of society and they're going to be a part of our lives, and we need to take that responsibility very seriously.
So you were able to move an issue that, as you noted, is not politically powerful or unifying the way other issues might be. You were able to move it on the basis, I think, of centering that issue of dignity. And you moved some really remarkable pieces of legislation. The Justice Action Network has a video that tracks this year and a half you've had of being able to change policy. I want us to be able to see it and then talk about that more.
America was founded by many people who came here for a second chance. I think we've always offered that. And I believe in redemption. I believe in opportunity. I don't think we're really helping society if we don't rethink what being incarcerated really is intended to do. It's not just to remove, but it is to rehabilitate. And as a governor, it is my responsibility in this state to do everything in my power to make sure that we give our citizens that opportunity. They're people like us. They're people who, they too wake up in the morning and want to be better versions of themselves. What can we do to come alongside people like that? I would encourage every elected official, go into our prisons, have a frank and honest and current conversation with people who are incarcerated in your communities, in your states. They must become a part of the fabric of America, because the beauty and the greatness of the tapestry that is America is comprised of many different threads. They're different colors, they're different strengths, they're different thicknesses, but together they make the mosaic that is the beauty of America, and we need it to be strong. Criminal justice reform is coming. We have so many people who've made a mistake, who've gotten crossways with the criminal justice system. And we are a nation of second chances, a nation of redemption. We owe people this. It's going to be good for them. It'll be good for society. It'll be good for all of Kentucky. There's been a lot of discussion about criminal justice in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, about how we can look at the levels of recidivism, how we can assimilate people back into the workforce. How can we indeed make Kentucky an example to the nation of how to do criminal justice in the best way possible? Senator Westerfield is the true architect behind this and the champion behind it.
I want to thank you, Governor, for your leadership on this. I want to thank you for creating the CJ PAC last June. Over the last several months, we've been working hard to come up with a policy or set of policies that can improve public safety and enhance the administration of justice. Those were the two goals of the CJ PAC, and this bill does that.
I truly do believe in redemption and second chances. This is the foundation of America. I know it to my core. There are tens of thousands of men and women who are people that have screwed up, but they've paid their dues. They want a second opportunity, and I think we owe it to them. I truly believe we owe people a chance to re-assimilate, and I just want to say that Kentucky needs this, America needs it, and I think just the greatness of our nation is predicated on second chances and opportunities, and I think this is a way that allows many boats to rise on the same tide, which is why I sit here today.
And so, Mr. President, I believe it is wholly appropriate to pause and thank and congratulate the senator from Christian for his excellent work as he achieves final passage on Senate Bill 120.
It's great to have ideas, it's great to believe this, but to be able to put it from a theoretical perspective into legislation that has the ability to become enacted into law so that it will truly impact people, it's very rewarding. And my hat's off to the dozens of folks who have worked so tirelessly over the last 6 months to make this possible. I hope there are more governors and more legislators at the state and federal level who are less concerned about how it might affect them politically and more concerned about how it might affect their communities. We have an obligation, a responsibility, frankly, to lead by example, lead boldly, to be shepherds, not sheep, not to be worried about how the political impact might be, not be worried about getting reelected, but worrying about how we can actually help those that are actually in need of help from government. That is our responsibility.
Governor, can you just tell us briefly what the legislation does?
There are several things, and let me back up even real quickly, because I would encourage any state watching this who has not done it to do the same. Even before this piece of legislation was passed, We passed a felony expungement bill that is one of the most comprehensive in the nation that affords people a second chance. We did ban the box. It's a term people are familiar with. I know Google has done it as well, which is simply not requiring people to check a box stating they have a conviction even before they're considered for possible employment. Those were basic things. This bill came about, the CJPAC, a Criminal Justice Policy Assessment Council, made up of 24 people from the faith-based community, for-profit business community, the judges and prosecutors, victims, rights advocates, all of the above, weighing in and saying these are the half a dozen issues that we need answers on. And out of that came a variety of things, such as the Justice to Journeyman program that was referred to, where we have now 7 programs inside not only our prisons, but our juvenile detention centers, where we're training young men and women how to be certified journeymen for various skills, electrical work, plumbing work, IT work, etc. And so these are things that are starting to be transformative. Just even the ways in which we look at the requirements of people when they're on parole and what does or doesn't result in a violation of parole. Trying to bring a more common sense approach. People often talk about being smart on crime. And in large measure, this is what we're trying to do, is literally use common sense principles, understanding that we want lower recidivism rates. And work is the most critical thing. Studies have shown that people who come out 3 years after coming out, if they have worked for just 12 months of that period of time, their likelihood of going back is 1/3 that of those who do not have that chance. So how can we come alongside people while they're inside? Also, how are we dealing with drug treatment? In Kentucky, 75 to 80 to 85% of every prison you go into are people that are there for drug-related offenses or minor crimes, non-violent crimes associated with their drug habit. And so how do we address that? How do we address things like behavioral health? These things are in this bill, and a variety of things that just start to bring a focus to the fact that we are not going to accept the idea that we have one of the highest rates of incarceration and one of the highest rates of recidivism at a cost that is increasingly prohibitive. And it isn't just, as has been noted, the dollar cost alone. It is numerically expensive. It's nearly $600 million of our annual budget. We have 25,000 people incarcerated in Kentucky right now for a state of 4.4 million people. Way too high. But it's the societal cost, it's the emotional cost, it's the physical and spiritual cost to people, and the generational cost. That's what I think is the more important thing for us to focus on. We solve those things, and ultimately the dollar cost will fall in line.
Yeah. So I have to say that when I hear you speak about your vision of justice reform, what you're committed to seeing in your state, I wonder whether you feel that way at the federal level. So I know that you met with the White House and you talked to folks at the White House about the remarkable work that's happening in your state. What is your sense of what we might be able to see around reform at the federal level?
I certainly don't speak for the White House or for the president or for the administration, but I will say this: I'm highly encouraged by the degree of conversation that I've had, and I know for a fact, based on personal conversations with the president and people on his staff, that this is meaningful to him. He has had a personal family experiences of people who've wrestled not only with the justice system, but with addiction. And these things move him personally, and he truly understands that we need a vibrant workforce. This is an economic development issue too. We can't have 2 million people as third-class citizens sitting on the sideline in society. It's just bad policy at its purest, most fiscal level. And so the White House understands this. I'm encouraged by it. Everything in Washington moves with a ridiculously plodding pace. And so I think at the state level, we had this conversation. It was used, and even in a conversation coming in here, leadership comes by example. It really does. And whether it's a Google saying we're going to ban the box, and leading by example for other corporations, or whether it's states doing the same thing, people will follow. I mean, there's a need in government for shepherds as well, both as governors and as presidents or whatever the case might be. But I think the opportunity is as real now as ever. There have been any number of studies through the years, any number of 5-year studies and blue ribbon panels assembled, and lots of talk. But I'll tell you, I'll speak for Kim and myself. I know her well enough to know we're people who believe in action too. You got to sometimes actually hit the gas pedal and start moving. with a sense of purpose. And before we're done, too, I want to thank those of you that are here. I don't know, maybe it was so you could lie on the Barco loungers up there. I don't know. But truly, thanks for being here. Thanks for caring about this. And take this message, because every single person, as this young woman in the video is just moving to me, you know, every life matters. Every life matters, and you can do anything, including be a leverage on this topic. Just discussion. Facebook, social media is powerful. And so use these tools to make sure that people are aware of this. And Malika, I'm grateful to you as well for your heart for this.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to, I'm sorry, we don't have a video for you.
I don't think we can take one more.
You took my line.
But I think, you know, what Governor Bevin talks about in terms of the moral, emotional, political, economic power of justice reform is very present right now. And we are in a red state with 2 rising Republican star governors. And this is, you know, a way in which justice reform is being talked about in a bipartisan manner that is different. And I want to understand better. I mean, I often tell the story of how when I was doing criminal justice reform, you know, in 2007 and 2006, I would bring Pat Nolan around with me to different congressional offices and say, see, conservatives believe in justice reform too, because here's Pat Nolan. And Pat would speak powerfully about why we needed justice reform. But he was one of the few voices in the conservative community really being able to speak to this as a conservative issue. So what has happened that justice reform has this kind of support and momentum from the conservative community?
Well, I think a lot of it is because of what's happened in Texas, and I'm grateful both to Governor Perry and now Governor Abbott for their leadership in this regard. And as we say in Texas, it ain't bragging if it's true. Since we started down this path in 2005, our crime rate's down 34%, our incarceration rate's down 23%. So at the end of the day, I always say the appetizer is perhaps fiscal, saving money, but the main course is public safety, keeping families together, redeeming lives. More people in the workforce rather than a burden on society. And that's kind of what we've heard about today. So I think the appeal is very natural to, frankly, we've seen, whether it's social conservatives or fiscal conservatives, the whole gamut coming on board, and you can see, you know, who signed on to Right on Crime, our statement of principles, people like Newt Gingrich and Grover Norquist and now Mike Huckabee, a whole list of people who share our ideas about this. And so I'm optimistic that we're going to continue to see progress on this. Just most recently in our Texas legislative session in 2017, we saw legislation passed and signed by the governor to get rid of debtors' prisons, so people who can't afford to pay a fine or a fee don't languish in jail, often losing their job. We expanded our record sealing law to give people those second chances. And by the way, thank you for your leadership on pardons. Governor Bevin pardoned 10 people in July of 2017, which is very unusual. Normally, a governor might wait to his end of his term, but thank you for identifying those deserving people of those second chances. And so I think that ultimately, if you look from 2005 to 2010, there were 31 states that reduced both crime and their prison populations. So what we've proven is whether it's through drug courts or treatment for mental illness, other alternatives, there's actually ways to get better results at a lower cost, at both human and fiscal.
But talk to me more about how Texas went from, you know, a tough on crime, lock 'em up state where there were many prisons being built to a state that had really emerged as the genesis of this kind of comprehensive state reform work.
Well, it's appropriate where Google's a data company, and data is an important part of this process. And of course, I'm looking at my colleague Derek Cohen, a PhD, to help me on that. But the criminal justice system, historically, it grows when it fails. And our challenge is to move to a system that rewards results. And so it's to create the right incentives both for offenders and for the system. So back in Texas, at the beginning of 2007, we faced a projection that we would need to build another 17,000 prison beds at a cost of billions of dollars to build and operate. And instead, working with Jerry Madden and Governor Perry and others, we went in and said, how can we fill this projection with alternatives to prison, problem-solving courts, better probation, with lower caseloads, more treatment. We gave those judges and prosecutors somewhere else to send these nonviolent offenders that they had confidence in, where there wasn't a waiting list of months to get into that program. And so we immediately have seen the reductions, fewer people on probation committing new offenses because we have the right supervision, the right treatment programs. But identifying the need and the data, where the gaps are in the system, and the fact that, in Texas there's a lot of discretion in our sentencing laws, and judges and prosecutors said, look, give us the additional tools and we won't use prison as much, and that's borne out to be true. We've closed 8 prisons now. So as we work in all these different states, we start by looking at the data. What's your system now? What are the alternatives that we could put in place to incarceration for appropriate offenders to get better outcomes? What we found specifically is sending people to prison or jail for 6 months or 9 months, as still many states do, that's particularly ineffective because you're getting very little in the way of incapacitation, but that's enough time for someone to lose their job, to become disconnected from their family. So it's there that you're really seeing this move towards keeping people in the community through these various alternative programs.
So I want to close by thanking each of you, and also by remembering that for Google, about 2 years ago, Brian Stevenson came to the company, and he challenged us as a company to be proximate, to bear witness to the human costs of mass incarceration. And we have met him in that challenge. Our leadership has visited prisons, Rikers in particular, and we have decided to be part of this work and this effort and this long march towards justice reform. And each of you today has given me such pride in the opportunity to work together to see a better country, a country of second chances, a country that doesn't have a broken justice system, a country that is about justice for everyone. So thank you to each of you, and thank you for being here at Google with us.
Thank you. Well done, man. Awesome.
Where's Henry from BuzzFeed? Yeah, I see what I tell you about these two, right? Are you glad you came? I want to thank everyone so much for coming, and I really want to thank everyone who tuned in to our live stream, particularly the women at the Mitchellville Prison in Iowa. Thank you all so much for your inspiration and your hard work. As my home state governor, Governor Bevin, very often says, we're going to come alongside you, and we believe in you, and we really want to make you a part of the fabric of our communities. We do these events for a very specific reason. And that's because we are in a day and in a time when the news cycle is so saturated with political rhetoric that we're not talking about real solutions to some really significant problems that we have in our country right now. 1 in 3 American adults has a criminal record now. 1 in 3, a third of our country. Women are the fastest growing segment of the prison population, and no one's talking about that. And do you know that 1 in 4 women that are entering our justice system right now are either pregnant or mothers to children under the age of 1? 1 in 4, 25% of the women that are entering our correctional facilities are either pregnant or mothers to women under the age, or mothers to children rather, under the age of 1. I'm just hoping everyone absorbs that, because it's not just about the people who are making mistakes, it's also about the children that they leave behind when they have to go to jail or prison. So at any rate, we're very hopeful that the reporters that tuned in and the reporters like Henry from BuzzFeed who showed up to cover this event will actually talk about the fact that there are conservative governors in this country who are offering real solutions to real problems. So again, thank you so much for coming, and I will get in trouble if I don't ask all of you all to please drop your name tags and the little clips on them right outside the door. So thank you all very much.
Fast car, is it fast enough? You